Hey guys, Todd Heaton here with Humilitas First. In this video, I'll share an excerpt from an upcoming presentation I'm giving on October 7th regarding active shooter preparedness. If you're an organization in need of active shooter preparedness training, you can find my contact information on my homepage. Email me for a free consultation and corporate rates. February 14, 2018, Parkland, Florida, Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. The active shooter enters the 1200 building with the rifle case, turns into a stairwell where he takes out the rifle and loads it. So this animation was presented by the Broward Sheriff's Office at a Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School Public Safety Commission meeting, revealing the active shooter's movements. So the green dots indicate the person's otherwise healthy. The purple dots indicate they've just been murdered, and the yellow dots indicate they've been shot and wounded. So the first thing I want to note is, so look at the time. It's just over the 32-second mark, and we have the first person shot and killed. Terrorists or active shooters, they can attack anywhere at any time. Police cannot defend everywhere all the time. In the initial volley of gunfire, we're talking about just 5 seconds. Look at the clock. Those are not firecrackers, and they are not balloons popping. We need to build in trained responses and then drill or practice those to make sure that they're working, to make sure that we're doing what we need to do. That we don't want to waste time. Time is a precious commodity in any kind of violent situation. Arguably, for room 1216, there's not a lot of options. You're not going to be able to flee out the windows. The time constraint, this shooter is very near. He's just outside the door. The one thing you can do is you can gain a better position. So what's a good position? It helps if you understand a little bit about the tactics involved in room clearing, especially as a single person would clear a room. It's also helpful to begin with a great position. For a lot of us, we tend to want to set in the back. As it relates to this particular risk assessment, that 90-degree breach point, that point of domination, setting in the front means it takes far less time to move into that narrow cut, to move into that hard corner. So it comes down to angles. As a solo person, you can use a technique called slicing the pie, and you can see little by little more angles of the interior of that room without ever having to go through the doorway. Going through the doorway, going through the threshold, that is inherently dangerous. Should the active shooter attempt to transition into the room, to attempt to dominate the room, he's vulnerable to attack as he begins to move through that threshold. He's vulnerable from that narrow cut or that hard corner. You can clear 90+% of this room from the hallway. So where would I want to be to give me the highest probability of successfully counterattacking this active shooter? I'm going to want to be in that hard corner. That 90-degree narrow cut. We're just 10 seconds in and we have 8 people shot. We're still in single digits. 4 have been murdered, 4 have been shot. The main point that I'm trying to make here is we don't want to make it easy for the active shooter to get line of sight on us. Does this new position, this 90-degree angle, does it guarantee anything? By no means. There are no guarantees in the realm of violence. There's only probabilities. We're looking to stack probabilities. One witness at Parkland reported the active shooter had shot through both doors and walls. So what are these walls made of? Will these interior walls be bullet resistant, or do they offer no protection at all? These things are need to know, not merely nice to know. And the people that sit on the committees that are about to build schools need to be thinking about architectural designs as it relates to these kinds of events. This active shooter, he never does go into any of these rooms. He shoots from the threshold, from just outside that doorway. So room 1216, they had just a couple seconds after that first volley of shots were fired. But what about room 1214? So after that first volley of shots are fired, it's 48 seconds, which is a long time. That gives you quite a while to get up into that narrow cut, that 90-degree angle, or better yet, out one of the windows and away from the building. Okay, so we're just shy of 1 minute. We're at 53 seconds of a minute, and we're well into double digits. We've had 14 people shot total, 6 murdered, 8 shot and wounded. Now we're going to see the active shooter return to room 1216. So how much time has passed since that initial volley of gunfire? Just 1 minute and 8 seconds, and we're at the 15th victim who is also murdered. Whatever decision you decide to make, that's your decision. It's a judgment call. You have to make it. I can't make it for you. I'm just telling you what I would want to do. If I can't get out the windows for some reason, and getting out into the hallway is not a good option, and whether I can barricade the door or not, if he can see into that room, I don't want to be in his line of sight. Then I'm going to try to be in this hard corner, this 90-degree angle, this narrow cut. So approximately 1 minute and 15 seconds have transpired, and we've got 19 people shot, 8 people dead. So we see the killer, the active shooter, go back to room 1214 methodically to check to see if there's anybody else that he needs to shoot. So here we see room 1213, and you need to understand that 1 minute and like 34 seconds have passed. A big part of the federal government's solution is run, hide, fight. Those are not necessarily in the order that they need to take place. Any tactical question that you could ever ask can be rightly answered with just 2 words. It depends. Then comes the work of explaining some of the things that it depends upon. The word if is a heads up to some of the things that it depends upon. The late Colonel Jeff Cooper gave us the color codes. Part of those color codes included the color code orange, and that consisted of if then. Looking at a situation and imagining, if this happens, then I'm going to do that. If I cannot quickly place a 90-degree corner between me and the active shooter, if I can't get out of his line of sight, and if I'm close enough, fight might be the first option. If I have a concealed firearm on me, fight is gonna be the best option for the common good of all the people present. When I discuss words like fight, run, or hide, I mean something very specific. Fight means incapacitate. When I talk about run, I mean escape. Escape's going to include things like stacking corners, stacking concealment, stacking cover. Escape's going to include things like giving yourself and your children permission to break things, if need be, to get out and away from the active shooter. When I talk about hide, I talk about barricading. Barricading does not mean giving way to false hope or a kind of despair. It means continuing to plan and prepare, using that precious time that you've delayed the active shooter to either A, escape, or B, prepare for close personal combat should he breach that 90-degree threshold. So I'm not sure why, given a 1.5-minute time frame, escaping out one of the windows on the first floor wasn't an option in this case. But if escape is not an option, whether I'm barricaded or not, where do I want to be? A position of 90 degrees, that narrow cut. Breaching through a doorway is a transition. It's a transition through that threshold, and you or I or anybody is very vulnerable during that transition. My goal is to set up a hasty counter ambush with surprise, speed, and violence of action at the point when the active shooter is the most vulnerable. Help support this work and help build this channel. Be sure to click like, subscribe, and share. Over at Humilitas First, you can click on my About, Training, or Contact tabs, and there you'll be able to join Humilitas First email notification list. That way, anytime I put out new videos, blog posts, or any other kind of training opportunity, you'll get notified. Just enter your email, your first name, and click join now. It's as simple as that.